Right. Welcome everybody. As always, I'm gonna ask you guys to turn on your cameras, show up and show out. It's gonna be great. We got a great guest tonight. As always though, but I wanna always start by honoring you guys. First of all, I was really proud of y'all. I know I got on a couple of y'all on Sunday, up at Landon at the workouts, but I was really proud of y'all working. We're ahead of schedule right now, so I'm glad to see folks on here. First of all, let me get a shout out. I probably should have pulled the video up. Let me see if I can grab the video. My man Elijah was on TV. I don't know if y'all saw that. I meant to send it out. I'm gonna send it out. I don't. Elijah was on the news, just talking about loving basketball. You want to come off from mute for a second and just what was that like, man? I wasn't on the news when I was your age. What was it like? How'd you feel seeing yourself on TV talking the other day?
It felt kind of nervous, but at the same time, once you they told us that it wasn't live so that we don't feel pressure and that we don't mess up. And you can always just do
Yep,
whatever
right
you
there. Time
want
out.
and
Time
have
out.
fun.
Absolutely. Nah, that was great. How did you even get a chance to do that? For those that missed it, Elijah was on the new, I think channel 7, what channel was it? NBC channel what
NBC Channel 4,
yeah,
yeah.
NBC channel 4. Just talking about they were talking about PG County basketball. And I guess it was you and another one of your friends or teammates. How did you all get to do that? How did they pick you all to do that?
So my counselor from aftercare, she told me that I was gonna be on the news and she got me prepared, and so did my mom and my dad. They got me prepared for it.
No doubt. So somebody saw something in you and decided to put you as the face of the conversation. I love it. That's good stuff. Well, you represented well. You represented well here tonight, man. You've been doing great at the academy. So absolutely, man. Thank you. Congratulations on your first, I'm sure, of many times in front of that camera. That you did a great job on TV for sure. Um, all right. Anybody have another win for the week? That was one of my wins, but anybody have a win? Something that cool that happened at school, something happened with your friends, your family. Somebody give me a win before we jump into our guest tonight. Just come off mute and let me know. Don't be shy. Brag a little bit. All right. If anybody got one, you got one, Noah? You about to say something? Go ahead, Noah.
So, other than basketball, I also run. I do cross country.
Yep.
So, I was able to qualify for states. I'm
Okay.
like, I'm 20th in the state right now.
20th in the state. Okay. How long have you been doing that? How long have you been doing cross country?
First year,
It's your first year. Okay. What's harder, cross country or basketball?
basketball, because it's
Basketball.
like mental.
There you go. And when you're out there running, you're just out there going. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Well, congratulations on that. Way to qualify and keep the thing about it. I'm assuming it's early in the season. I don't know what the cross country season looks like, but the whole thing about it is you can literally track to see how you should be getting much better every week for the work you're putting in. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, that's a great way to kick this off. I always let us celebrate the work y'all are doing off the court as well. But we have a special guest tonight, man. I can't tell you how excited I was to find out that we were going to be able to get Hunter to come talk to us, man. I will tell y'all, you have no idea. You're going to learn over the next hour who this gentleman is, but he is a very special, special dude. And I say that because I met Hunter, I think, in seventh grade. The first time I think I saw Hunter play was in seventh grade. And just watching the work that he's put in to get to where he is. I mean, he's literally right now, he just had his NBA debut with the Pelicans. We're gonna talk about his journey, but I know as you guys, many of you are starting second, third, fourth, fifth grade. The journey, you're literally beginning something. If you want to go to the top of this game and play professionally on some level, it's a long journey. It's a lot of work. And Hunter has put in the work and he's here just to share some stuff. So as always, if you have any questions while we're talking, I'm going to show some slides, show some stuff. But any questions, put it in the chat. So all good. All right. So well, let me pull up my slides just for those. And by the way, good to see you, Sammy. My man Sammy Clark is on the call. I will just say this real quick. And Sammy was a graduate of the Takeover Basketball Academy. He's now in the seventh grade, but he started there with us in the fifth grade. Tremendous work ethic. So glad to see you, Sammy. I'm glad y'all checking in.
Yeah.
Good to see the family indeed. All right, let me just kind of recap a little bit about what we've been doing here on Wisdom Wednesdays. Our first guest was one of Hunter's coaches, Feathery Ray. Ray started us off on that first week. And then we had again a great week. We had Jordan Smith on here. That was incredible. What he was talking about. And we had another one of Hunter's coaches. We had Coach Doug on here to represent. And now we're bringing to Hunter Dickinson. And I just want to help y'all understand these pictures a little bit. I'm going to show you a little bit of this, and we're going to talk a little bit. But Hunter started with Takeover, played with DeMatha, this one
Oh, wait.
championship DeMatha.
You
Um,
watching my
went on to play, at Michigan, and then Kansas, and we're gonna chronicle some of his time. But I want y'all to really understand, like the person that y'all are gonna hear from next, like he's been through what you're trying to get to. And he's done it in a way that I don't, he's a one of a kind. I don't know anybody quite like this young man, this man now. But I just want to thank, first of all, and just welcome to the Takeover Basketball Academy and to this conversation. My good friend Hunter Dickinson, a good friend of Takeover family. Hunter, thank you for taking some time out and joining us, man. We really appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks, Coach, for allowing me to be on here.
Absolutely. No, I will say this, and just to give you a little bit of the background, Hunter, we're doing our Takeover Basketball Academy. This is like our preseason. And so these are guys who are coming out. We got second through sixth grade, working on Sundays. We're actually taking trips all around the different schools every single weekend. And then on Wednesdays we meet to get, as Noah said, the mind right in terms of what we have to do and how we will have to learn from it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit. I'm going to show you a little bit about who Hunter is. I got a couple video clips here, and I'm going to tell a little bit. But here, just check it. I just want y'all to understand again what who this is you are talking to. Check this out.
Hunter Dickinson is a 24-year-old center that has scored almost 2,500 points in his college career. He's proven to be one of the most productive college bigs of this decade. But can he finally help one of his teams win a national title? I pulled up to Allen Fieldhouse to check in on how Hunter and Kansas are looking midway through the season. And Hunter was putting on a show in this rivalry game against K-State, going to his spin move in post-up situations in the first half as Kansas went into the break up 10 points. But it was in the second half when Hunter really put his dominance on display. When he gets to that post hook with the left, it's automatic over any defender. And then he started taking it to the rack off the dribble from the three-point line. Hunter scored 17 points in this second half alone to give him 25 on the game as Kansas picks up a big rivalry win over K-State. Despite falling from preseason number 1 to now being ranked 12th in the country, I still believe the Jayhawks have the talent to compete for a national title.
So to watch that, and again to think about the first time I saw Hunter play basketball, and talk to Hunter, talk about. Well, let's back up. When you first started playing basketball, it didn't quite look like that. Talk about
No.
the journey that you talk about your how I guess your appreciation for how much you improved and the work you put in to really learn how to play the game over the course of your career.
Yeah, it can definitely be tough to kind of, sit back and realize how far you've come. But definitely, growing up, I was always one of the taller kids, around the DMV. And so I always had a spot on the team. But like you said, I've definitely come a long way. I think, when I was younger, I was definitely more on the video games than on the basketball court. And I think that definitely kind of affected me in my development early on. I think, my middle school days, I wasn't really that good, or definitely late elementary school days. And then kind of towards the end of my towards the end of middle school is when I started to really become more serious about the game. And I think I started to become, I started to, grow developmentally, way more. And then once I got to high school, I think, once I started growing and once I got to 7 foot, that's when I really started to take off, and get a lot better. I think, I could definitely relate a lot of my success to just being in the gym. I think, the more I work out, the more I get confident, is usually the better I play. And that's kind of been my mindset, throughout my career.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that about in terms of getting serious, right? Like you being in the video games, and I always say, you got to have a life, you got to have kids, and you were a different type of dude. Like you actually, I mean, you like to have conversations. You were a different type of dude. I didn't realize the video game thing, but that actually makes sense in terms of how your mind was always connecting. But when you got serious about the game and really started putting in the work, obviously you said as you said you took off. What would be the biggest thing to biggest maybe for a second, third, fourth grader, fifth grader? Because obviously, you're at talking about the work you put in at high levels was all the time, every day. But how do you balance being a kid and being able to like video games or like doing other things, but also be serious about basketball? How would you talk about balancing that?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I mean, it's something that, you're gonna battle with throughout your career. It's something that, dudes my age and in my position right now still battle to this day. I think for me, the easiest way to kind of balance it was always making sure that basketball was first in terms of, obviously school was always the main thing, but then after that, I always talk about my extracurriculars, and basketball was always an extracurricular. I would say, always making sure that that came first, whether it's like getting in a workout and then being able to play the game, or, on the weekends going to lift and do something and then, being able to play the video games. As long as you don't have it flip-flopped where you're playing, and then you forget about a workout or something like that, I feel like, you'll always have the balance of making sure, prioritizing the things that you want in your life, is very important.
Yeah, I love that you said that even to this day. I mean, you're right. It's all of once you get good at that, it's something you carry a skill actually for the rest of your life for sure. You talked about, being on some of those teams and being just kind of a guy on the team, being the biggest guy, the project everybody kind of knew was coming. I pulled up this picture from that seventh grade team, and what I love about this team, and I was telling Hunter, I just had a chance to see Justin more as well today. So they're talking to two of you guys from this team because this is I mean, this is an incredible story about Team Takeover. I always say, what makes us different from everybody else and what makes us a program that really, practices what we preach. There aren't a lot of guys in other programs that started in the younger ages and get all the way to the end with them. And this whole team almost went from I think this was eighth grade, this eighth grade picture to literally being EYBL champions. And just for if y'all are missing them, I hope you probably can't miss them, but just to see, that was Hunter. He was I had to put him out, but he was just really a kid who, yeah, a kid who could tell it was on the way. But Hunter was serious about it. But that team. What I want you to understand is that this eighth grade team, with probably at least five of the guys I'm looking at right now, these guys went on to win a Peach Jam together. Like, and just to think about, they played together, and some of them from sixth, seventh grade continued themselves all the way up until that 18 to that 17U Peace Jam Championship. It was a special team, incredible team. I mean, you asked them if I could name all the names, but these guys, you got some pros on here, you got national champions, you got some folks in these pictures. You got guys that went to Ivy League schools and got great degrees. I mean, this is serious stuff. Talk about that journey that you guys were on, because I just felt y'all were always a really tight, special group. What was it like being part of that, that takeover family? And like you said, finding your role from being a little bit behind the scenes at first to really becoming the man at the end. But talk about what that journey was like with the guys and with the takeover family.
Yeah, it was funny that you showed that picture. In that picture at the time, I was probably the worst player on the team if you looked at that picture again, if you went through all the dudes. But now, obviously, like, that's one thing about the journey is you never know kind of how it's all going to shake out at the end. Dudes at your age are probably going to be number one in the country, and then 10 years later, you'll never hear of them again. But, in the moment, you're so like, oh, this dude's going to be the best ever. So it's definitely a journey. But I would say, being in the takeover organization, I definitely felt, a lot of gratitude for being in it, because it's funny. I always tell people, like, when I was in sixth, seventh grade, in my practices, we were doing the same exact practices that we were doing in college my first year at Michigan, like the same shell drill, like the same transition drills. It's hilarious how, much faster you're given the development at takeover. And we kind of knew, after I lost in the EYBL championship my freshman year. I played with, Sticks, Miles Dredd, Xavier Johnson, who went to Indiana. I played with a bunch of those guys. We lost in the championship, and then we knew kind of the next year, Once we lost and we looked ahead, we kind of knew that that was going to be our year when we had Justin Moore coming back, a dude that I've been playing with since middle school. Anthony Harris, another dude I've been playing since middle school. That's in that picture. We had Jeremy Roach, who I've been playing with since middle school. Terrence Williams, like all these dudes I've been playing with since middle school, and we really felt like once we all got together, it was funny. We all went to rival high schools. Obviously me and Justin were at DeMatha, and Carson went to DeMatha, but everybody went to Gonzaga, DeMatha, St. John's, Paul VI. But once we all came together and once we got out of the WCAC play, it felt like, we had been playing with each other forever. And I think, whether it was a close game, a 30-point blowout, in practice, like we always were on the same page. We always kind of knew what each other was doing. And I think that had a lot to do with our success. And the reason why we won the EYBL championship is because of that continuity that we've had over the years.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was such a special group, man. And I will tell you, since you said that part, I will tell you the story of, I believe it was the first time I met Harden. It was definitely the first time I really knew who he was, because as I say, he's been always been a little different. We had played a sixth grade game. We were up at Athletic Republic, New 24 at the time, and we had played the sixth grade game, and Hunter and Coach Ray and I were playing on the seventh grade game. So I just came and sat on the bench at the end of the bench. And I looked at Hunter, and they were warming up. And Hunter was sitting on the bench, and he looked and he saw the other team, and he started tying his shoes up real tight. And he was like, "Coach, I'm playing today." It was a bunch of little white kids running around and a bunch of little skinny kids. And Hunter looked at me and said, "And when I get in the game, it's gonna be white on white crime." Remember he said that, Hunter? Hunter is, and when he said that, I looked at this kid like this is seventh grade, and he went in the game and he was dishing because he could compete. He was rolling and he did his thing that day. And literally from seeing that him meeting him and talking to him and seeing them grow into turn into like grown men now, it's amazing to me what were able to accomplish. I mean, like you said, you can go on this picture. There's a lot of hoopers on this picture, right? You talked about the competition and bringing that to the WCAC. And, it was classic battles and great games. And, your time in the WCAC was when you really kind of, like you said, you just kind of took over the area at one point. Like you guys just really put it down. And I saw this picture and I remember, it was a coming out party of ways where nationwide people knew that you had risen to this level. What was it like being able to bring DeMatha to that level? I won't say again because you'll say you never really left, but the dominance that you all had when you had that run. Talk about what it was like, the pride for that for DeMatha.
No, for sure. I mean, I remember when I first got to DeMatha, my freshman year, we hadn't won a WCC championship in 5 years, and that was the longest drought we went on since we became a school. And so there was definitely like a lot of pressure that we felt. And then especially after we lost my freshman year, it had been 6 years, and like the Matha, I mean, we had 39 WCC championships at the time, and so we were definitely feeling like a lot of pressure given how Gonzaga had been doing. They had Chris Likes and then they had won a good amount of championships. And even coming like growing up, my brother went to Gonzaga. He went to Gonzaga for 3 years, his sophomore, junior, and senior year. And he played DeMatha in the championship every year and lost every year. And so, me growing up, like I always associated DeMatha with winning the WCAC. And so that was definitely something, of a big goal of mine when I went there was to try to win, at least one, but hopefully at least two WCC championships. And when we won my sophomore year, that was probably, one of my favorite moments. But then, coming back my senior year and winning it, I would say, that's definitely one of my top basketball moments was winning my senior year, just because of how hard you fight all year to be able to win it and go out on top. And fortunately, COVID that was that year, so that was our last game we ever played was the WCC championship.
Mhm.
And so um, it was definitely a grind because the WCC is so hard. Like you're playing against the best high school teams in the country every night. You're playing against the best talent. It's definitely tough to win a WCC championship, but when you do, it's one of the best feelings because you definitely feel like you get all the bragging rights with your friends. And like I said earlier, when you're playing against or playing with them at Takeover, you get to brag all summer about how you're the best team and everything like that. So it was a ton of fun, and super fortunate I was able to get two of them.
Absolutely. And Hunter absolutely, Brad. Hunter definitely carried that to everybody, no matter at the end of every argument, if you needed it. That was good. talking about the DMV, right? And I know, and again, you've been all over the world playing basketball. You played against people from all over the world. What is it that you found that makes a DMV basketball player different, or what is it? What's the magic that you tapped into here as well?
I think a lot of it has to do with the coaching. I mean, we have so many teams in the DMV. You would think, that you get a lot of bad coaching, but whether you look at Takeover, Durant, all these other a lot of programs have sprung up since I left. But I always thought, the coaching was really good, and I can, definitely speak for Takeover throughout all the levels. Back when I was growing up, we had Ray, who, a lot of guys now. Then we had Doug, who's overtime famous now. He's gotten too famous for everybody.
Yep.
And then Keith and stuff like that. Like the coaching was always super good, and I felt like that really prepared us for every level we went to. Like I would always remember, like when you got to college, um, like all the college coaches would always like come back to Keith and say how prepared his guys were, because like when I got to college, like dudes wouldn't know like how to do a shell drill. And I'm like, yo, I've been doing this for freaking 10 years. And like dudes would come out and like close out and their top leg would be inviting middle. And I'm like, bro, like that's some stuff we learned in like fifth grade, sixth grade at Takeover. And so I definitely think, the level of coaching definitely helps, but then also just the level of talent that you're playing against every weekend. I would always say like when I had like, if I had a kid in the MV, like I wouldn't need to leave for a tournament. Like I would just play the dudes in my area because the talent is so good. Like you don't need to go outside the area to really play. Like there's so many good players throughout the age groups. In my on my AAU team alone, we had the starting lineup was Duke, North Carolina again, Michigan, and Villanova. So it's like that's just in the starting lineup. Then you look at the bench, we had Maryland, Michigan again, Virginia, one with the Providence, and then we had a couple other guys that went Ivy League, like you said. And so, like, just in that team alone, there's like no area is doing that, and that's just on one team. And so, like other teams in the DMV, one of my teammates, Earl, was a five-star who ended up going to Miami and stuff like that. So, I think the area being so talented also helps because you're playing against, guys, and you're going against guys every day, every weekend. That's only going to make you better.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, when you took that to the next level, that is what I've heard so many times about that our kids are just ready. Like we've done the drills, we've played against the competition. Sometimes guys are leaving towns and going to play at a big school, and it's the biggest competition they played ever because they haven't been used to having to compete like that. So it absolutely sets it up. So that brings us to this next stage of your career, and that's where you went out to put on the maize and blue and just basically announce yourself to the country. I mean, we all knew who you were, but you announced yourself to the country and you announced it in a way that I want to kind of tap into a little bit because people got to know not just the basketball hunter, but love him or hate him. They learned about the competitor, the character, the person that you are, and very emotional person. And so, talk a little bit about the emotion that you play with because it's interesting, sitting here listening to. Well, first of all, by the way, yes, the emotion is at the top, but the production is here at the bottom. Y'all, like it was on a foundation of being able to talk your trash because he was competing and doing it. But talk about, people hear you. I'm listening to your voice. It always, again, 7 foot giant, but it doesn't sound. You don't sound. You wouldn't. People don't think you sound like this that don't know you, that see you on the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
But talk about that and what that does for you and how that kind of came about. Your
I would say, growing up, like I was a big white guy, and like I think, like when I was playing when I was really young, like a lot of people would call me like soft and stuff like that. And I really hated that. Like I hated when people would call me soft and like, so I think when I got older, like as I kept getting older, like the one thing I just didn't want people to think was like I was a soft white guy. And so like you had to play like a little dirty and like with a little edge to you. And I always found that like, whenever I played with that and like whenever I was talking a little smack or like really getting animated after I scored and stuff like that. That's always when I played better. And I found that, to be true kind of throughout my college career and high school career. And so I kind of just always wanted to keep that with me because I always felt like not that I would get bored or like the game was kind of boring, but like when I wasn't into like I feel like I wasn't into it as much if I wasn't, hyping myself up and stuff like that. I always found that to be kind of a way to get myself going and jumpstart my game. And so I always felt like I played with the edge to myself, and I felt like that kind of separated me and kind of helped me get to where I was for sure.
Yeah. What was it like when you walked into those opposing gyms or in those opposing arenas where people were gunning for you? I mean, you became a lightning rod, and again, you carried that well because I know you don't really sweat it, but what is it like walking into an arena where like they love you at home, but then when you go on the road, they like you get all of that. What's that feel? How's that feel? What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I always liked it because I mean, you're gonna get booed regardless, and so like I always appreciated, going into a opposing arena and when they're booing you for starting lineups, they're booing you the loudest out of anybody. I mean, because I could take it, like I got used to it and playing in the WCAC, like
Yeah.
going on the road to PVR, going on the road to Gonzaga, like those were like little mini college games in itself. And so when I would go to like at Indiana or at Michigan State, I was kind of already used to playing in really loud gyms and stuff like that. So I didn't think that really affected me that much. And my mindset was always like if I'm the one they're booing at and yelling at, that kind of gives my teammates um, you know, not as much pressure, and so they're able to play their game a little bit more. That was kind of my mindset, is kind of take the pressure off my teammates and let it come, on top of my shoulders. And so it was fun, man. I had a great time in college, going on the road. Those games were always the best because if you got to win on the road, like, road games are always way more tough than home games. Home games, your teammates are always going to shoot the ball a little bit better. The crowd's going to be louder. You're going to get more calls at home. On the road, those is when, the other team's playing great and you still go out there and beat them. It's a great feeling getting back on the plane. And so, the Rose game, they were tough, but I loved it. I loved that competitiveness that those are the games, you play basketball for sure.
Yeah, yeah, like literally taking one for the team. That's a great way to think about it. Because I know you really don't care. Like I know you
Yeah.
really don't care. Like so when people say all kinds of stuff, I remember one time I defended you on Twitter one time, and I was like, what am I caring for? He doesn't care. Like it's like
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I
I
appreciate
got you.
it.
But yeah, but nah, that's great. Now, and I will say this, even as you went out there and made your mark in Michigan, I was always thankful for when Caleb came out for his visit. That was a great visit for us because like being able to takeover was in the building, and you were able to play with two other takeover guys. Caleb is doing that at Georgetown with three other guys right now. How did that, I mean, again, nobody else is doing that, first of all, right? But what was that experience like taking that next step, but having some hometown guys, especially T. Will, you've been with for years? What was that like?
Yeah, having T. Will there was honestly like a lifesaver for me. Because when I obviously came to Michigan during COVID, and so like there like you couldn't do anything. Like during COVID, it was crazy. Like we would wake up, we'd have this damn math class at 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then like oh, that was the worst. So you'd wake up at like 7:50, try to get as much sleep as you could, and then you'd have this math class that was just horrible. And then obviously like on Tuesday, Thursday, we had a different class at 8 a.m., but it wasn't as bad. So you'd be in class from like 8 to like 1 or 2 pretty much every day. It was probably like 8 to like 1:30 every day, with like 10-minute breaks in between
Mm.
each Zoom class. And then you'd go to practice, and like practice would be like where you get to hang out with all your boys because like you're not talking to anybody, you're not seeing anybody else on campus. So you'd get there like a little early just to chill in the locker room, hang out and talk. And then like you'd have practice. So we'd practice from like I always count like pre-practice as practice. So we'd practice from like 3 to like 7. You can gotta count in your lift and everything in there. But then, you leave after treatment at like 8, and then you're just, in your room again till the next day. So like you really have like that practice time was really crucial. Other than that, you're only seeing your roommates. And thankfully, T. Will was there with me. And I had known T. Will since the second grade. We played with and against each other on DC Assault in the second grade and third grade. So having him there as like, one of my best friends definitely saved me because I think a lot of freshmen, when they go off to college and they're all alone, it can be really tough because you're in a new situation with people you don't know, like different cultures, like different, and like obviously in the DMV, like I always say, like we have our own culture because like we have our own slang, our own way of talking to people and stuff like that. And having T. Will there, to just be able to talk to, like relate to, was super huge for me. but also just being able to play with him. And then Doug came a little bit later, so having three takeover guys there, it was super fun to kind of have like our own little DMV culture at Michigan. I would definitely say, again, that just goes back to our talent level and how, things like that happen because the area is so talented and, people see how talented we are and want to have that on their team.
Yeah, no, definitely, and they represented, and that's how Caleb felt on the visit. Obviously, man, he was like, man, he said the same stuff, the talk, the slang, just being able to connect with people. So, no, that was great. Now, as you and did you had an amazing career at Michigan, and then the portal, right? And a lot of people talk about and I remember when this was going on, what was Hunter going to do next, and I knew I knew how smart you are, how you were going to land on it in the age of basketball that you've come up in terms of big time business decisions, basketball decisions. You've done an incredible job, obviously, moving within this. What was it like when you decided to leave Michigan? I know how loyalty and teams are important to you, and I know how much you loved it there. When you decided to make that jump and to go to Kansas, what was that decision like? What was that about?
Oh man, that was probably one of the hardest decisions I ever made in my life. Because like you said, like loyalty is a big thing for me. And like I owe a ton of my success, especially in college, but just in my career to Jawan Howard, the coach. He's now at assistant coach for the Brooklyn Nets. But I owe a lot, like a lot to him because he developed me a lot. And so leaving him was super tough because I'd been there for 3 years. I came in as like a high four-star recruit, but not really thought of to do too much right away. And then, I was a second team All American my freshman year, first team All Big Ten. I mean, that's pretty unheard of, especially for a big man coming out like that. And so leaving him was super tough, but it was definitely a business decision. I mean, like you said, the era coming up, like once NIL got passed, once I transferred, that was kind of like the first. I was pretty much the first big name to transfer in the portal, and I kind of got all these NIL numbers started going because nobody was really making a lot of money before I transferred. Once I transferred, then people started to realize like, hey, like there's a market for dudes, and like you don't just have to you know play for like a couple $1,000s. You can actually make a good amount of money in this game in college. And so when I first hit the portal, my phone was ringing off the hook. It was worse than high school for sure. It was way worse than high school because like in high school, all the college coaches are kind of, recruiting you and telling you what you might be able to do, like in terms of your potential and everything like that. But once I was in the portal, they kind of already knew what I could do. And it's kind of like, yo, we're gonna plug you in here and this is what you're gonna do. Like we see you being this successful like right away. And so it was a different type of recruiting approach. I remember taking Zoom calls and stuff like that, but I knew, kind of I had it narrowed down pretty early, pretty quickly to Kansas, Kentucky, Villanova, and Maryland.
Mm,
I really wanted to go home. I really wanted to go home to Maryland because, playing at DeMatha, Maryland's 2 miles away.
yeah,
But once one of the players came back, I just felt like, and my high school head coach was assistant coach there. Mike Jones,
yeah,
who's now a head coach at Old Dominion, was the assistant coach there. So I thought, it was a no-brainer. But once one of their players came back, I felt like, there was kind of a logjam in
gotcha.
terms of spacing. Like I kind of envisioned the spacing and I'm like, this is kind of similar to what I had at Michigan.
Hmm.
And I was like, if I'm leaving Michigan, like I'm not going to leave for the same scenario that I just came from. And so I was like, even though I really wanted to go home, like playing at home in Maryland would have been, a dream come true for me. But it didn't work out because I was like, I need to do what's best for my career. I really liked Villanova a lot because I would have been able to play with Justin Moore,
Yep.
one of my best friends, who we talked about earlier. But their head coach, I wasn't too big of a fan of. They had Jay Wright before him, and he was such a good coach. And then Cal Neptune, great dude. But, when he was recruiting me, I was like, yo, he's a great dude. But I just kind of seen what he did with the players he had, and I was like, I don't know if I like that's the dude I want to trust with my future. Like, I
Mm,
want to like trust like I have Coach Calipari and Coach Self, two Hall
yeah.
of Fame coaches. I'm like, I could go play for them, and like I'm pretty sure they'll they'll find a way to figure it out. And then I would say it was really between, Kentucky and Kansas. I think the biggest separator was, Kentucky was so young. They had Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepherd coming in. Nobody really knew who Reed Shepherd was. They were kind of talking about him like he was a throw-in in that class. But they had DJ Wagner, a really high recruiting class. And I had just played with a couple freshmen, Jet Howard, Doug McDaniel that we talked about. And it was super stressful playing with the young guys because it's like, you're trying in college, like they're just coming out of high school, they have all these rankings and mixtapes and you can't like they're the best player in the world in their head. And so it's hard to talk to them a lot.
Mm.
And so I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And in Kansas, they had a much older team, much more veteran team. And I was like, man, like, it's a tough decision, but I'm like, if I'm gonna go to my next school, like I want it to be as sure thing as possible. Nothing's a sure thing in life, but like, I wanted all the pieces to kind of fit how I wanted them to. And so I ended up choosing Kansas just because I felt, Coach Self had a great pedigree of, developing big men. And so I felt like, playing for him, I would get that development that I would be able to add on from whatever Jawan developed me and told me and taught me to be able to add whatever Coach Self told me and taught me. Like I feel like having those two coach me would be the best decision for my career. And I ended up choosing Kansas. And, obviously we had a lot of preseason expectations. Probably didn't live up to them as much, but I definitely had a great 2 years there and I don't really regret the decision at all. I mean, I had fun. I was able to, make my mark there and do what I wanted to do, and that's kind of all you can ask for.
Yeah, no, that's powerful stuff. And to be able, and one thing I hope everyone's hearing this, parents and young people as well. Hunter has talked about coaching this whole time. He talked about the coaching in the area. He talked about the coach. Like that's been, I want y'all to understand that. And it's not to brag on what we're doing, but we know what we're doing. So we're telling y'all stuff on Sundays. Like if you just listen, like we know what we're doing. And I'm not saying I'm the coaches he's talking about, but I know that what we do at this level, nobody really does it better than us for in these grades. And when you get to our middle school, nobody really does it, and he just keeps going. But he's talking about having played with, Hall of Fame coaches in his career, and that is pivotal to his success. So I want
I
y'all to
mean, you're an example of it for sure. I mean, you had two sons go through the system. I mean, like you weren't one of the parents who was always hounding, Keith or Jamil like during practice and during the games and stuff like that. I mean, you're obviously you're the head coach of this team. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but did Caleb start 17s at takeover?
so here's the thing with Caleb is he took one for the team. We had a kid who mentally wouldn't have done well if he didn't start. Caleb was like, let him start. I'll play more minutes, but let him come off the starting bench. Like at the
Exactly. And
17s.
and I know a lot of parents who would have been like with their kid, that's like, yo, like my kid needs to start, blah blah blah. Like, but you've seen it already with Jelani, and you've seen how like you don't need to start on takeover. Like all you need to do is be productive and show that you're a winning player, and people will take notice of that. And
Yeah.
so obviously, like you're a prime example of trusting the process. And it's like you don't always have to be in the limelight all the time. Like people will realize your value and your worth wherever you are. And then eventually you're going to become a dude where, like we were talking about before the Zoom, Caleb's going to be starting in college his sophomore year at Georgetown. Like, not a lot of kids are, especially in this day and age in the NIL portal, like to be a starter as a sophomore is huge because, colleges are trying to stay old because, with the red shirting and the transferring and all that and staying old, a lot of colleges want seniors and fifth year seniors and juniors. They don't want sophomores and freshmen. So for a sophomore to be starting, he's definitely doing something right and has potential for sure.
Oh, thank you, man. I definitely, like I said, I've seen it, the success enough. And that's a good, I'm bringing to a question. You've played for some, I mean, clearly some incredible programs, Takeover, DeMatha, Michigan, Kansas, now in the NBA. But what's the common core that what's the common thing that common thread that runs through a winning organization? Because again, sometimes you haven't won, right? So what was the difference between when when you gave yourself the best shot to win, whether it's organizationally or coaching or what was the kind of the common cores that were always there?
I would always say the common core would be the connectivity amongst the players.
Mhm.
and then having that kind of being on the same page with the coaches. Because I think one thing that, at Takeover, especially at DeMatha, especially my first year at Michigan when we went to the Elite Eight, all those teams, I think the reason why the years were so fun was because we got along so well and we hung out like off the basketball court and we were really able to bond and kind of, I always say bonding off the court is so important because you get to really understand who you're playing with and why dudes are playing. Like I remember at Takeover, we would always have a dude come in the summer and kind of put us through like a chemistry boot camp of sorts. And like to this day, I think about him to this day. Like these were some of the most important weekends of my life, but you're really understanding why like dudes are playing and like what they're playing for. Like, some people don't have a father, or some people like their mom like is dealing with something, or like, you seen like they seen a best friend get shot and they're playing for their dead best friend. Like all these, obviously like these are bad scenarios, or somebody like, is trying to make it out of the hood or something like that. Like you see why people are playing the game of basketball and you really kind of get to understand them as a human. And I think once you get that connectivity, it makes it so much easier to play for them on the court and play a little bit harder. And then once you factor that in with, being on the same page as your coaches and, buying into what the coaches, the game plan and his vision for you as a team and as a player, I think that really is kind of when our teams took off. I think my more unsuccessful teams, we didn't hang out as much.
Mm.
Dudes really weren't bought into, what the coach was trying to say. I think the coach kind of really didn't trust his players to execute what the game plan was. And those years just weren't as fun because, it didn't feel like we were connected off the court or on the court. And it kind of showed with our record and how the season went.
Yeah, no, and again, it even goes all the way back to, when we travel in middle school and we get a chance to talk to each other and just families meet each other. That connective act is literally a part of this success formula for real. So now you go to Kansas, you continue your dominance there. Again, All American, score close to 3,000 points in your career. And then an interesting thing happens because everybody says, well, Hunter's done. Like nobody, the league doesn't need big men like that. And then you made a switch. I don't know if it was a switch, but the brilliance of this move I got to talk about because when everyone was talking about Hunter needs to go get a job and people are like, oh, you suck, go get a job. Hunter comes out with a LinkedIn deal. So check this commercial out.
1 minute, you're getting college scholarship offers from coaches and doing brand deals for skincare products. Then it's crickets. Over 2,800 points, 1,500 rebounds, 7 years of college eligibility. The NIL money's dried up. So preparing to end my career, did what any athlete would do. I got on LinkedIn. LinkedIn can help you confidently navigate every step of your job search. LinkedIn helps you figure out what's next and who's hiring. Now I'm building toward my next career off the court. Visit LinkedIn and dare to discover your next job opportunity. I'll see you out there.
Talk about, I want to say this to y'all. If you have the courage to be yourself, there's value in who you are. When I tell y'all Hunter's been the same dude since since I've known him in terms of his character, and when someone sees your value, like Elijah said earlier, somebody picked you because they saw something in you and said, you know what, I'm gonna put you here front and center. When I saw that LinkedIn come out, I was like, that's perfect. So help me with, because again, I know you got some business connects as well that we share, but talk about the building your brand, like who Hunter Dickinson is and how you really meticulate. Because you're doing a great job with that.
Yeah, I think, like you said, being original and being genuine, um, like nobody likes like a fake person. Like no, like, when you're hanging out with your friends and stuff like that, nobody likes one person who, you know, talks one way when somebody's around and then once they leave, like they talk a whole different way. Like everybody hates those kind of people. And so like for me, I always feel like, I kept it the same, and just stayed original. But when that opportunity came about, I was super excited. I was telling my agent, my agent in college at the time, I was like, bro, if we can get that, that's going to go viral. And no, it did go viral. It
Yeah.
got some views for sure. But like you said, like when you're comfortable in your own skin and you're not worried about what other people are thinking, because like a lot of people would have declined that because they knew like they were getting like a ton of hate and stuff like that for it. Like obviously, like my DMs like all the time are talking about like LinkedIn and then all this other stuff and so it got to a point where like I was like, yo, like we gotta be able to make this into we got to spin this around a little bit. And so, being able to get paid for kind of like that was super fun and super enjoyable. And I definitely thought like it was a success for my career and my brand, because when you're growing up and as you get higher and higher in the levels, you do kind of become your own brand as a player. Like, you look at Nike, you look at
Do you know?
Adidas as these own brands, or anything like all these brands. Once you're coming up as a basketball player, and once you get old enough, you kind of become your own brand, like the Hunter Dickinson brand. And so you got to carry yourself like that. You can't be getting in trouble because that hurts the brand. That's almost like having like a faulty shoe, like a shoe that breaks. Like that's kind of like a similar sense where people aren't going to trust your shoes as much if you go out there and you mess up and get kicked out of school. Like that really hurts your brand, because brands really won't trust and invest money or a scholarship into you and stuff like that. So for me, I was always trying to protect my brand. I always try to make sure to stay out of trouble. Like whether it was, on the court, off the court, I'm always trying to make sure, I just handle my business and try to, not give people a reason to, you know, kick me off a team or take money out of my pocket. So that was always something that I always try to focus on, was just, keeping a good image, keeping a good brand, because that can definitely pay off in the long run for sure, whether it's financially or with basketball opportunities.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then to kind of prove the haters wrong, right? Here we are today, here where you are now. You just made your NBA debut in the preseason the other night. What was that moment like? Because I don't know if that's it's the exhale of the I got here, but it's also the beginning of how do I stay here, right? But what
Oh
was
yeah.
the night like, in terms of, and congratulations again. People don't realize just playing a game, and you're talking about of all the people that ever picked up a basketball in the world, you're talking about top 1% people that, so congratulations on that. But what was that like the other night for you in that debut?
No, it was crazy. I mean, because we were playing in Australia, and so like we were playing at, I think we were playing at like 11 p.m. back your time. And so it was definitely nuts. Like when I got in, like it was so surreal because you're playing with like some of the best people in the world. So when I first got the ball, like I was like, oh shoot, like this is real this time. But then, like any basketball game, it kind of wears off, and you get like you've been playing it your whole life, so you get so used to it. But it was definitely a fun moment for me. Just kind of, I still don't feel like I made it yet. I
Yeah.
feel like, a regular season game, then I'll feel it, coach. But it was definitely a great stepping stone for me and something that would definitely give me a lot of confidence going forward. But when you put in so much hard work, it's not expected. It's never expected. Like it's never expected in this game. But when you put in so much hard work and over the years, it's kind of like a final realization of all the hard work, and you feel really good about it.
Yeah, my last question, and then we'll take some in the chat. If you want to ask some questions, put them in the chat. I just want to go back to this picture though. Who's the body double, and like where did you like who is this guy in this picture? Because that's like yo.
I know, yeah, yeah, I know, yeah. The media day. Okay. I know this is a whole lot of work, man. Whole lot of work.
Ah man, you're looking great, man. I'm so proud of you, man. All right, so let's get to some questions in the chat. We got about 10 minutes left. Um, so I got first one says, how did you control the emotions? Wait, how do you who is it? How did you control the emotions? Oh, how did you control the emotions to get used to them? Like you said. Okay, how did you do that? How did you learn to do that?
I would say, it definitely can't, like I definitely had some trial and error for sure. In high school I got a lot of texts, and then even like my freshman year in college, I got a good amount of texts too. I feel like, thankfully my coaches were a little lenient with it. I think, if I got them later in my career with under Coach Self, we would have been a little bit less lenient with it. But I definitely had some trial and error, and I got had to get used to, being able to control it, but also, let it out, but also be able to control it at the same time. Um, but I think when it came to like, opposing crowds and stuff like that, you got to realize like, these people are just trying to say anything get under your ear. And like once you talk back, like you're never going to win those battles. Like you're never going to be able to win versus, an opposing fan or something like that, like in that split moment. So like it's not even worth it to talk back or really let it get to you, because like they don't really, like at the end of the day, like they don't really care like they don't really mean what they're saying. Like they're just saying it in the heat of the moment. So I would always have that realization. That's something that I realized from early on. And so I try to tell some of my teammates because some of my teammates would get so worked up about it. But I'm just like, bro, like at the end of the day, like who cares? Like it's just words. Like it's not like somebody like hit you in your face or something like that. Like it's just words. Like you really don't let it hurt you.
Gotcha. Yeah, and don't let it hurt. Definitely turn around and hurt the team and hurt your game, sure. Why did you wear number one your college career? You wore it at DeMatha too, right? We wore number
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's up with the number one?
So I like growing up, like number one was always taken. Like I was never able to wear number one in AAU, like growing up. And then once I got to DeMatha, we were getting like I wore 24 my first year, my freshman year. But then we were getting new jerseys the next year. And so I was like, like Coach Jones, like, let me get number one. And the reason why I wore number one is because it's like I feel like you gotta kind of have some. I would always say like you gotta have some swag to wear number one. Like
Yeah.
there's only one number one. Like like when you wear that number one, like you gotta have some game to you, or else like what like they want to give it to you. And so for me, like I always like we talked about earlier, like I always wanted that challenge. Like I always wanted that pressure of that number one. I felt like was the utmost pressure in terms of like all the numbers. And so that kind of just became me. Like once I got to DeMatha, and then fortunately when I got to Michigan, like there just wasn't a number one like that. It was just open, and I was like, shoot, like I'll take that for sure.
Yeah.
And then once I got to Kansas, like I was fortunate enough, like that number was open too. And so it was just I got a little bit of luck, but it was definitely great. And then once you get to the NBA, that number one's definitely gone.
Yeah.
So I just had to get the next lowest number, and that was number four. So I was like, all right, bet I'll rock with it.
Yeah, that's good. That's dope. And I love what you said about the intentionality. And it also talks about what you said you started to feel confident that you were that number one guy.
Yeah, for
Came
sure.
out of
Yeah,
that freshman year.
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And so every time you put that jersey on, it was like a reminder, like, yo, I got to go out here and produce. Like that's real talk.
Yeah, I'll be like, yeah, yeah. Like once you put that number one, you're like, damn, I'm that dude
Yeah,
for
nah,
sure.
that's dope. Okay. How did you decide? Well, the Clark boys want to know how you decided what high school you wanted to go to. I know you talked about the winning tradition of DeMatha as you grew up, but was there anything in terms of whether was there ever another choice? And if you did, how did you make the decision?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, when I was growing up, because I went to Mater Dei Middle School in Bethesda, or like yeah, in that Potomac Bethesda area. And so growing up, or like when I was in like seventh grade, I was pretty much like certain I was going to Georgetown Prep. Like
Mm,
it was me and T Will, we were going to Georgetown Prep. Like it was already a done deal. Like it was already kind of like understood. And then they fired their head coach my eighth grade, like pretty early, almost like pretty much going into my eighth grade year. And it's kind of like when I was like, oh, like I'm not really going there anymore because like that was kind of the main reason why I was going there was to play for like not the main reason. Like I like the
mhm.
school and one of the assistants I knew really well, but also like I like the head coach and so I wanted to play for him. And then once that happened, I kind of like it's like, oh, I don't know where I'm gonna go. And then I kind of got, every school in the country or every school in the area wanted me, just because, I was like 6'11" in eighth grade. And I was pretty good. So I was like, why not? And so I was taking all my shadow visits and it came down to DeMatha, Paul the Sixth, and Episcopal.
Mm,
Um, those three schools. Episcopal, like I really liked Episcopal. Like I really liked the coach, and I had went to middle school with Xavier Johnson, who went there and played there, and then his brother Darius I went to middle school with as well, and played AAU with him, take over guys, and so I really liked that. But I kind of realized that the IAC just wasn't wasn't it's just not the same. Like if the IAC was in any other state, it would be the best basketball league in that state. But having the WCAC in the state is just tough because you know me being a competitor, me always wanted to play against the best. Like it was just hard to turn down going the WCAC. I feel like for my development and what was best for my career, I feel like the WCAC was the best for me.
yeah.
And so once it came down to DeMatha and Paul the Sixth, I liked Paul the Sixth a lot. Obviously a lot of my teammates went there from takeover. But at the end of the day, like Mike Jones, he had a ton of pros. Like he coached Jeremy Grant, Victor Oladipo, Quinn Cook, um, both the Grant brothers, and then like he's had a ton of pros. I mean, he coached for USA Basketball, and so I always thought that, like I wanted to follow in the footsteps of people before me. Like I kind of wanted the blueprint laid down for me. Other people they want to lay down their own blueprint. That's great for them. For me, I kind of wanted to go where pros had went before me, and like there's been a blueprint for how to get to the NBA because that was my main goal when I went to choosing or in high school was trying to get to the NBA. And I felt like just choosing DeMatha would put me in the best kind of path and journey for that.
Absolutely. No, good stuff. All right. Paulo wants to know how you got so tall, and we got three questions left, about 5 minutes. He said how you got so tall. Is it in the family? Talk about your. He said it's in
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's the family. Like I don't think I did anything specifically. Because my mom's 6'1", my dad's 6'6". So I'd say my mom definitely helped a lot with the height. My
the.
brothers are 6'6", 6'9", and 6'10". So it's definitely a tall family. I would say I drank a lot of chocolate milk. I think there's something in the chocolate milk for sure. Me and my brothers drank a lot of chocolate milk. We were pounding like gallons like every other day, and so
Really?
I always claim that I think that works, but genetics and had a lot to do with it.
Absolutely. All right. That's another NIL deal coming too. That's good. Um,
Yeah.
how is it playing with Jeremiah Fears?
It's fun. I mean, Jeremiah Fears is super talented. He's so young. I mean, I'm 24, he's 18, so it's wild playing with him. But he's super athletic, super quick. When I'm sending ball screens for him, he gets any type of separation, he's gone. Or like if I get the rebound and he's got a step on the dude, I just try to as far as I can, and I know he'll be the first one to get to it. But super really good guard in the league in a couple of years for sure.
Yeah, that's great. All right, these two kind of go together, and it talks about your daily routine, your schedule. What's it like when you wake up? Now, especially in I guess in the pro camp time is a little different, but right now, I guess I ask you in the league right now what you're doing. What's your day look like?
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot more simple than college. College, like you got so many things going on, like with school and all these other obligations. NBA is really simple. We're actually out of training camp now because like we had training camp in Australia. Now we're in like preseason mode where it's like practice, but like a little bit hard. Like it's a normal like it's like a training camp practice, but like not training camp. It's weird. But so on normal days, I'll wake up at around like 7:50. I leave my house at around 8:05. Get to the gym at around like 8:20. Uh, get breakfast in the facility. We got really good food here. We're in New Orleans, so you got to have really good food. So I get breakfast, and I'll eat breakfast to about 8:50. That's when we have our table time. So it's kind of like when the trainers kind of like stretch you out and get your body ready. And then we'll lift for like 30 to 40 minutes. Then you go on the court and you have court time. So it's basically just you and your player development coach. You're working out for about 30-ish minutes. And for me, I'm a rookie, and so like you get the earliest possible court time, like Kevon Looney, Jordan Poole, those guys who won championships and are vets, they get the latest time. So like they get the sweet time, they get to sleep in, but I'll get there eventually. But so after your court time, I'm kind of just hanging out for about an hour, and then we have practice from like 11 to about 12:30. NBA is crazy. The practices are really not that hard. Like I swear, like takeover practice is definitely harder than these practices, but it's so intense though. Like when you're going, like when you are practicing, it's super intense and super focused. And then after that, we stay another like 20, 30 minutes just getting up shots. And then I'll do some type of recovery, whether it's, cold tub, stretching, stuff like that. Then get lunch, get out of there. Usually take like an hour nap. I try to keep my naps between like 1 to 2 hours. Anything longer than that, like I get groggy and like the day's kind of over with. So I'll do like an hour nap. So I wake up around 3 and then kind of just hang out, like do whatever. And then I always come back to the gym at around I'll get to the gym at like 7 and then I'll work out from like 7:30 to about 8:30. So yeah, like after this call, I'm about to go over there. So, but then after that, do a little bit more recovery, like to get like a little quick lift in anything that I didn't do during the day, and then kind of just go back, watch some Netflix, and then go to sleep around. I try to go to bed around like I'll get in bed at like 11:15, try to be in like try to go to sleep around like 11:30.
Okay, and that gets up to close to 8. That answers the question about trying to get about 8 hours in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My goal is always like 8.5 if I can.
Yeah, and a nap. That's hell. That's good. That's a good life.
Yeah.
Hey, Kyle, can I ask a question real
Oh
quick?
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, BJ.
Um, so congratulations on making it to the league. My question to you is, what do you want your 2K26 rating to be at the end of the season?
Oh yeah. I saw that. I was actually impressed with mine. I think like, yeah, as long as I'm not like the worst player in the league, I'm cool with that. 60, I think my rebound's pretty decent. I think my three is pretty decent. I don't know. I don't really play 2K. That's kind of the thing. Like more of a Call of Duty guy. But now that like I'm in the game, I'm definitely gonna play for sure. And they said like as long as you like, I think like Ronnie 2K like gives NBA dudes like maxed out players. So I'm gonna go once like my connection isn't that good right now. I got to get some better connection. But once I get that, then I'll go in the park and get my 99 overalls and start playing with them. But I definitely got to go play as myself in 2K for sure. But if I can stay like if I can get to like a 70, that'll be a win for me. If I get to like a 70, be cool with that. Just keep that slow grind. Keep getting a little bit better every year.
I love it. Last question, and we'll kind of wrap this up, man. You're also down there with a heavy DMV presence, right?
Right.
Even in New Orleans, man, you got my guy Sadiq down there, right? You got right, Sadiq's down there with you guys?
Yep.
Yep, Sadiq. Derek
Yep.
Queen. Yeah, I
Shane
know he's a
Hawkins,
little.
who DeMatha guy I played
Yeah,
high school
Jordan.
with.
Yeah, you can't escape it. What do you, as these next ballers are coming up in the DMV area, what would you like to kind of leave them with to just, as whatever you want to leave them with, whatever nuggets you want to give them to just take their journey to keep repping the DMV and keep the tradition alive? What do you want to leave us with?
Yeah, for sure. I would say if it's like the if I could only say one thing, it would just be always, keep your love for the game. Like never like I would say I've seen a lot of dudes, whether they don't work out enough or some dudes work out too much and like they kind of lose that love for the game. I think, having that love for the game's really driven me and kind of, kept me going because it can be tough. Like basketball, you're gonna have your ups and your downs, and you're gonna go through a stretch of, you might go through a whole month of just like feeling like crap and not feeling like you want to play basketball or, you know, you're not playing well in the games, you're not practicing well. And so it can definitely test your love for the game. But I would always say keep your love for the game. Always make sure that's first and forefront because that's what's going to carry you. Playing hard and all that stuff. It's kind of always goes back to your love of the game. If you're not really feeling the game, like you're not going to play as hard, you're not going to be as vested into it. But if you keep that love and you're like, you're into it, that's when great things happen. So I would say, like we said at the beginning, like balance it for sure. Go out and have fun and do other things, like be a kid for sure. Definitely get your work in, but like have always make sure you're having fun, especially at this age. Take it serious, but not too serious. Like it's not life or death. Obviously, you can grow and develop and get really good at this game at a young age, but definitely go make sure you're having fun as a kid. Be a kid for sure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, Hunter, man. I know you got to get to work. We definitely thank you for keep representing the DMV takeover and just yourself, man. I really appreciate you as a person, and thanks for taking this time to pour back and give to our young folks. And we're getting ready for our season to come in just as you are. So we'll be rooting for you, and definitely anytime you check in, you can come check us out of the game. I know you'll be around. So.
Absolutely. No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Good luck in the season. You guys are in good hands, and I know you guys will do good things.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
All right,
Everybody,
Coach.
thank you
I'll
guys for
see you
showing
guys.
up. We'll see you next time, man.
Thank you.
You.
Yep. Take care.
Have a good one.
All right, guys. And parents, everybody, that was great. The recording will be available. Mouse and Reed.